Well said.
I think I broke it.
Oh, Sarah broke it.
No, that would be me. I bet I did something.
That's
I was gonna pull up that rule and show you, Dr. Scoman.
yes.
That is the rule that psych board has.
Hey, I like that. And how long have you had that in place? Since
It's fairly new.
okay, so it really hasn't been tested, but it seems to me that's
I borrowed it from Minnesota or Michigan. They had something similar to it, and I had borrowed it from them.
I'd be fine with that, and that would keep us coalesced with other boards.
Could this be put in the council's chapter so it applies to all boards?
I don't think so, because it's up to each board to decide if they want to waive those requirements. The council can't decide that for the boards.
I see.
Madam Chairman, if you're open to a motion, I would make the motion that we adopt that language adjusted to our specifics for our marriage and family therapy board.
I would second it.
We had 2 seconds. I'll just go with George. George seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of adopting that language for the LMFT board, please raise your hand. And I believe that is unanimous. Oh, Ken, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then that is unanimous.
So for clarity, the next step in the rulemaking process is to recommend it for proposed publication of proposed language to the council.
Or did y'all want us to bring a draft back to you at the next meeting, and then you say, yes, that's how we want it worded, send it on up?
I want to do whatever's fastest.
Okay, what Sarah said is the faster way.
Okay.
We'll
And the
basically
next-
just substitute LMFT board for psych, wherever it said that in there.
And the next council meeting is May 4th.
Yes.
Just to give you a perspective or context of the time frame. So if the council approves it for publication and we have 30-day public comment, it may be ready then for you to look at as an adopted rule at your July meeting.
I think I froze, or maybe y'all froze. I'm not sure. Sarah, I apologize. Can you repeat that again?
So the time frame of this rule might possibly be that it would go before the council as a proposed rule on May 4th. It might be published sometime in May, and a 30-day public comment period would end sometime in June. So public comment and a recommendation possibly for an adopted rule would be back before this board at your July meeting.
Okay.
And then back before the council, if you choose to recommend it for adoption, back before the council, I believe at their August meeting.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Thank you, Sarah.
Russ, I know, I mean, this is fast for a legislative process, but I don't know that this gets relief to your constituents at this moment. I don't know if there's anything we can do for that. Is it just, we got to wait on this rule to pass, guys? Is that?
Yeah, and I think that's what we're stuck with, but I really like the idea that we are addressing it, and that we can go back to them and say, it's in the works, you know, do the best you can. And if you end up dropping some hours, it's not going to be catastrophic, because we're kind of looking at ways to implement this as quickly as possible and then get the word out. So I think
Calvary's coming. It's just a little bit of distance between here and there. So
yeah.
I mean, candidly, from a practical standpoint, I think this is probably the best approach, because if y'all were to say, all right, Spinks, go seek a suspension from the governor, that's an uphill climb right now, because it's my understanding that any further requests are going to face a very steep incline. I don't think it would happen, just to be honest with you. So I think what y'all are doing is probably the most expedient way to resolve the situation.
Yeah, I think from the associates' perspective, the LMFT associates, I think this is going to give them they're going to sleep a little bit easier knowing that it's being addressed and it'll happen.
And I don't think we qualify for what we would call emergency rulemaking, so I don't think that's really an option.
Okay, let's move on to B, discussion and possible action regarding the U.S. Department of Education's letter concerning regionally accredited versus nationally accredited. So I guess this is probably a question for Daryl or Sarah, since this is written in our statute. What exactly are you looking for the board to do today?
Just to be informed, I think Attorney Patrick, I think I included Attorney Patrick's opinion that since this is in our statute, there's regionally accredited is in our statutory language. There's not much we can do at this time. I just wanted you to be informed, and should the Texas legislature take it up and want to make changes, then we would keep you informed of that and bring it back to you. I just wanted to, in case you got inquiries about it or wanted to give some input on it, just wanted to keep you informed of this development.
Given the overlap between what DOE, the accrediting bodies that DOE accredits, and then I don't think there's going to be any problem caused by this. It's a change. It's a change without any real consequences, I think, to us right now.
Okay. Is there anything that we should do to encourage the legislature to take up amending the statute? Or
you can write your legislature in your individual capacity,
okay.
but you cannot write them. We cannot lobby as a board or as an agency.
Okay. Well, thank you for this informational item. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay, then let's move on to C, discussion and possible action concerning COAMFT's reduction in minimum practice requirements. I believe that, and I guess, Sarah, if you want to put it on the screen, you can. Essentially, what this is about is COAMFT used to have a rule that said that the programs have to have 500 hours of direct client contact, and they are now reducing that to only 300 hours of direct client contact. And so the question becomes, do we want to make any changes in our rules because of this? Well, anyways, I will open up the floor to any discussion if anybody has any thoughts about this or questions about this at this time. I guess I would like to point out that the COAMFT requirements are still above and beyond, like they're still a higher standard than what the state of Texas requires. COAMFT requires 300 hours of direct client contact, whereas Texas, we only require 300 hours of, just 300 hours, and only 150 of that has to be direct. So their standards are technically still more stringent than ours. So I'm not sure if there's anything to do, but if anybody feels otherwise or has an opinion, please feel free to share it.
So I may have read this incorrectly, but my understanding of the change was that, nope, okay. I misread it. 300 direct client contact, of which 100 must be relational. Thank you for the clarification.
Welcome.
Madam Chair, I think that so much of what we've done in establishing these historically has been kind of driven a little bit by AAMFT, COAMFT, some of those the way in which they are establishing their parameters, and we've kind of accepted them as being a level of standard that if they are shifting that, I'm open for us also in parity shifting that, because I don't think we would at the academic level be really losing that much in the training process for all of that. So I would be in favor of kind of keeping that in line pretty much with what COAMFT accreditation standards are.
Are you saying to make the Texas requirements match the, okay, to require 300 hours of direct client contact as opposed to 300 of any hours, direct and indirect?
Could you state that again? I cut out a little bit.
No, it's okay. So basically, it sounds like what you're saying is you would be in favor of making the Texas rules, setting them to the higher standard of COAMFT is basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Just know that will implicate an antitrust review when you raise those standards like that.
It raises it, Daryl, because we're
You're
not basing it on anything. We're just doing what another organization's doing blindly.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and unless that other organization has some sort of data to back it up, we could say we're incorporating that by reference in, but we have to be able to justify that to the council and then to the governor's regulatory compliance division.
And so my question would be, is there support, or do we know if the organization has data behind it that we can review and look at before making that call or decision?
Yeah, I don't know what they do have. Trying to think, they released a video that explained kind of their decision making on this, and I don't honestly remember what was in the video. I remember them saying they don't want to micromanage programs, but I don't remember where, like, the data that they use to support the 300 hours of direct. But we could probably reach out to COAMFT and ask. So,
Respectfully, Dr. Barty, I would ask that we do that before making a decision to move forward with this.
I think every decision we make, if it can be substantiated by research, that is always the most sound way to go. So I'm in favor of that.
then we will reach out to COAMFT and see if we can get understand their kind of reasoning and their kind of decision-making process, and then we can let that influence what the board does next. Okay.
And Dr. Merchant, excuse me, how many of our programs are COAMFT and how many of our licensees come from a non-COAMFT program?
Are you wanting to know how many COAMFT schools there are, or how many
Well, not everyone that gets licensed in the state of Texas comes from a COAMFT program. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Some of them come from other programs. So I would like to know how many COAMFT programs we have in the state of Texas and how many COAMFT programs that still license marriage and family therapists in the state of Texas. Because are we going to be asking those schools up there as well? Are we going to force them, in other words, to go under the COAMFT banner when perhaps they don't feel the need to? Will that somehow give preference somehow to a COAMFT school over a non-COAMFT school? And how does that competition occur?
Good point, Janine.
Isn't, I know we're not LPC, but isn't LPC rule basically the same in the practicum? It's 300 hours with 150 direct, which is what we have now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're looking at increasing to 300 direct hours. That's doubling basically what we've been doing. If we're trying to keep programs somewhat similar, the other thing is I think I'm a professor emeritus, whatever that means you're old is what I've heard. But you know, I can tell you that that's going to put a burden on the schools that are not COAMFT to come up to that standard. So I think we need to really think about, I'm all for improving and doing everything we can, but I'm wondering if this is a necessary change that is going to improve the quality of our therapists that much, bottom line.
Would the change also require students to get even more hours to meet it, thereby increasing the student loan debt? I know I see lots of complaints from folks saying, you know, have to do all these hours. It ups my tuition bill, that kind of an argument. I don't know enough about the programs. I'm just throwing that out there.
I think it would personally, but I'm not currently teaching full time, so I don't know. But I think it would raise the cost.
Well, we are talking about reducing the number of hours.
Increase.
It's
What you're asking for us to do, Russ, is increase the number of hours, because Texas has a lower than Coamty does. So you're asking us to increase up to Coamty's level.
Okay. Then I'm misunderstanding this, because my understanding was Coamty was reducing their requirements.
Coamty
In
is
version 12, yeah, in version 12 of Coamty, they were at 500 hours.
Mhm.
Version 12.2 of Coamty, they're reducing it to 300 hours.
Right. So Coamty is reducing their standards, but their even reduced standard is still above the Texas standard. So
Right. Okay,
both, yeah. So,
good.
okay.
Stand correct. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional discussion about this? Okay, so it sounds like at this point in time, we don't want to take any action. Is that correct? Okay. Then the next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding changes to rules concerning the maximum of 15 continuing education hours for LMFT and 16 continuing education hours for LMFT associates delivered through a learning format that does not accommodate real-time interaction. So essentially taking away that requirement and allowing students, or not students, allowing therapists to acquire all their hours in a non-synchronous format is essentially what's been proposed. So, Daryl?
Yeah, staff have been getting some pushback from licensees on this particular issue, and I started looking at it. I think I understand the rationale for why you want a certain number to come from a live program, because it, at least on its face, gives the opportunity, if you had a question, to talk to the presenter. The problem with that kind of logic, in my view, is it doesn't require the interaction. And so if somebody is not inclined to ask questions at the live presentation, how is that really any different from allowing them to take a pre-recorded seminar? I just, unless you're going to require somebody to participate, I'm not sure what the requirement of them attending a live presentation really brings to the table.
I think it's the other way around, Mr. Spinks. I think it's the person who's looking for a live in person that wants to attend. By changing this, the likelihood of those continuing would be diminished, and the person being able to find a live in person would be lessened. And so their opportunity to be able to do that would not be as much so. I'd look at it the other way.
You would view it as it's more of a driving factor to keep those programs.
Correct.
Than it is on the licensee. Okay.
Right. Because obviously it's cheaper, easier, faster to do it without live in person. They can post it and do it whenever they want to.
Yeah.
And so then you're taking it away from those people who do want to ask questions or who do want to participate or interact. And it might be few and far between. Like you said, it might be one person or two people, but it's two people that we're serving versus no option for them whatsoever.
My notes on previous discussions of the board when we looked at these rules last summer and last spring, the board opined that there was an element of third-party verification that wasn't present when you did a self-study correspondence course or a pre-recorded webinar. So that assured the board members that at least some attempt at attending the CE and participating in the CE was completed on the part of the licensee.
Well, I mean, just candidly speaking, you can just minimize it and go on about your day while it's playing in the background. So I don't, to me, I'm not sure that it really provides any extra measure of verification, other than you have to sit there and then claim credit after it's done. But that's the same way for pre-recorded.
Perhaps I misspoke, but it's the third party that is, rather than a self-report of I completed these correspondence courses, which perhaps there's more systems in place, but that's what I understood them to say, is that the third party reports on behalf of or provides a certificate on behalf of the licensee that the education was completed.
The fact that people are complaining that there's not a live webinar for CEs, and to make this change, there'd be even less. So, I mean, it just decreases the ride.
I don't think we're getting complaints that there's not alive.
I'm just reading what licensees were also complaining that it was difficult to find a live webinar
Oh, okay. Yeah,
for
I
CE
see.
during the
Yeah.
pandemic. Madam Chair, on this one, I would suggest that we don't take any action. We leave it as is.
Is that a motion, George?
I'll second that motion.
Do we need a motion to keep it as is?
You don't need a motion.
Okay.
No action is needed.
Okay.
You can just move on and it stays the same.
Okay, is there any dissent? Okay, does not sound like it, so we will move on. Okay, let's see here. Back to my agenda. Mr. Francis, do you have any report from the Rules Committee?
I do not, other than the fact that it came to BHEC, fastest meeting known on the planet Earth. There was no external comments on it, went through smoothly. So that would be my report for this portion.
Awesome, thank you very much. Okay, I know that we need to take a lunch break soon. Do y'all want to take a lunch break at 11:30, or do y'all want to push on till noon?
When we look at the agenda, Madam Chair, it doesn't look like there's anything.
There's really not much left.
Yeah.
Oh, we might be able to. Okay, do y'all want to try to finish this before lunch then? Okay.
Please.
Let's see if we can do this. Okay, number 8, discussion and possible action on agreed orders, et cetera, et cetera.
There are none. It's just
Perfect.
a standing agenda item.
Okay. Number 9, discussion and possible action regarding strategies for communication with stakeholders. So one thing that I think would be kind of neat to do is for us to form maybe another committee if we're allowed to do that. And this committee would basically be made up of people who are willing to find creative ways to engage with our stakeholders. So this might be, the committee might decide that they want to create maybe a newsletter that we send out every quarter, or they might decide that they want to, maybe put together like a PowerPoint presentation that we take to professional organizations, or that we take even, okay, so one of the things, so here in Abilene, we actually have one of the highest, rates of child abuse. And it's not because Abilene has more child abuse than anywhere else in the state. It is because our local CPS agency does a really, really good job of getting out into the public, and they do presentations. They come to, my classes and do presentations. They go to hospitals, they go to churches, they go to Sunday school groups. And basically they have found that the more that they engage the community and are actually informing people about what abuse is, then the rates of abuse go up because it's getting reported more. And so I think it would be cool if we could, again, not because I'm not trying to like generate reports, or generate complaints or anything like that, but I just think that if we can get out and be connected with not just our professional stakeholders, but even with the public stakeholders, I think that just having the more public and professional engagement, I think that will just improve, our rulemaking. It might result in more complaints, but I just think that that engagement would be good. And so essentially I'd like to form a committee of people who would be willing to do presentations, maybe help with the newsletter, and basically generate other ways, ideas for us to engage our stakeholders better. Thoughts from the board?
I agree that
I think it's a great idea. Every time that a board member would come to our conventions and speak to us, that room was packed. So the more information and the more that the public or even schools, you know, I would love to work on this committee, because I think when you go and you are a board member and you're going to a school program to talk to them about how important it is for them to find out where the license stuff is. When I was in school, that really wasn't taught to us very much. And so I think that is a vital thing to keep students involved in paying attention to what their license and professional ethics, what that entails for them. They're not just graduating, they have to also pay attention to what their profession is going to be doing.
I agree. Reverend Dr. Skoma?
I was going to say, we hear so many good ideas from time to time, and it doesn't seem like we have the capacity to follow up on them, because the nature of a board like this eschews creativity. We can't be creative in this type of legislative dynamic or a regulative dynamic. And so to have a committee that's a little freer to do that kind of thing, I think would be helpful. And since we don't know the status of our travel, for those of you that have new, historically, this board has taken 1 out of 4 meetings in the year and traveled, done those in a stakeholder environment, usually a college environment or some other kind of structure where licensees are sitting, so that we can be more open and we can hear from them, they can hear from us. I think it remains to be seen if we're going to have the budget under that, a new BHEC of those kind of rules. But this would allow us a smaller, more mobile unit that perhaps could 1 or 2 go there. And if we make it enough of a geographic mix in there, perhaps we could get different regions covered. I think it's a great idea.
George, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I love the creativity behind it. I love your thought behind it. It's something that's unique that we haven't done before. Always look at thinking outside of the box. Just kudos to you for it.
Thank you. So are there people, members who would want to be on this committee? It sounds like Janine is one. I'm happy to be another. Do we have another 1 or 2 people who would be interested? Okay, Janine, it might just be you and me, and that's fine.
Dr. Merchant, if you get desperate for something or need something, give me a call.
Okay, I'll put George down if I'm desperate. George.
I sort of say I would recommend at least 1 public member on it in case y'all do a traveling road show, because it's I've seen that happen. We've done that in the past, and it's good to have a mix of the public and the professional there, because you get 2 different pictures when they talk to the folks. You get 2 different perspectives on it. It's pretty interesting to watch.
And I'd love to be involved, but until I get the ethics thing down, I think I should keep back and focus on one thing at a time. So maybe in the future.
Okay.
And can you keep me informed on that? Because I would like to just know about it and see if I can join later.
Okay.
I'm just slow to get my feet wet.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
I'd vote for throwing Daniel into the deep end of the pool and just sticking him on there. That's how we all had to learn, and we learned by doing. So if
yeah, I'm all about pushing him off the diving board. I've got no issues with that. I think that's ethical.
Daniel, aren't you glad we're not really in a meeting? Aren't you glad that we are on Zoom?
Well, I would be signing my name right now if that was the case. They're just signing down. But no, I'm really open to it, especially with the travel and to do it. That's why I said just please keep me informed. But I am probably 80% in.
Okay. Yes, sir. Janine, remind me where you live.
I'm in Austin.
Okay, cool. Well, then maybe having Daniel on the board might be good, because this way, if we go to Dallas, you know, we have one person who doesn't really have to travel, you know, so, okay. Okay, then that is it for that item. So back to my agenda. Okay, report from the board chair concerning lots of stuff. I actually really don't have, a whole lot to report. So I will just say that I am so sad that we are going to be losing Dr. Bateman. Ken, is this really your last meeting? You're muted.
Yeah, I forgot that. I've been trying to be quiet the whole time because a lot to say. Yeah, supposedly, although I haven't heard from Mr. Roach on the appointments committee, but I understand that this would be my last, that by the next meeting, I will be replaced. So
Fantastic. I haven't heard either way. So that's wonderful news that we'll have, that you don't have to stay on longer than your allotted time. I have greatly appreciated your service to this board. Ken, you're so very wise. You just kind of bring kind of a calmness and a thoughtfulness and a wisdom. And so I've just really appreciated getting to serve alongside you, especially on the licensing committee. You should be getting an email with a gift certificate to Gloria's. So if you do not get that email, please let me know. But thank you for your service, and I'm going to miss you. So, and wish you well in your retirement.
thank you. And thank you. I did open my email this morning, and there was a gift certificate, and I do appreciate it. It's been an honor for me to be able to serve on this board. 5 years. I think George is the only one that was on here before I came, but I have been so impressed with G4 and with everybody I've met on the board. And Sarah she is some fantastic person. I do not know how you keep all of that information in mind, but you do. And it's
Amazing.
like, just ask a question and she's got the answer. And so anyway, Sarah, I want you to know how much I appreciate you and the work that you and your staff do. And it's exciting to be a part from coming all the way to now the BHEC. There's a plan and a dream, and now there. I probably have I would just say this last, I know this is your report, Lisa, but my LMFT license number is 415. So I've been around for a while. Thank you all for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Ken.
Dr. Bateman, if you had a 3-digit ID number at Dell, that would put you into the 6 digits of millions. So that would be hundreds of millions with the splits with a 3-digit ID number. You clearly are very wealthy and rich, both in knowledge and in experience, sir.
Thank you.
If I may say, Madam Chair, to Dr. Bateman, he and I sat fairly close to each other when we were in person. And so he heard a lot of comments, and you are correct, Madam Chair, he is wise. And in fact, he gave me a lot of hope dealing with civilians, because that's not always the easiest thing to do. And especially with our reunions at Buc-ee's, we always chuckle about that. And so I don't know if I would use the word replace, Dr. Bateman. I would say someone would be in the chair. I don't know if you are replaceable in that regard. So, I don't comment or compliment too often, because a lot of times we just do it so regularly. But in this case, it is well deserved. And I agree with G4 that about the digitization process, but you're going to be missed. And hopefully we'll see you either at Buc-ee's or somewhere in the Metroplex as we go in 2021 and beyond. So you will be missed. I agree with Madam Chair in G4 that you have added a lot to this board, and your comments about Sarah. So it's been a dynamic duo. And especially when we've had people from other states who come to the great state of Texas and really, I've looked at you, even when you didn't think I was looking at you, is like, really? So, those discussions that we've had about people who come from another state and want to come to the great state of Texas and think that they can just automatically be boarded and certified and all of that. So I'll leave it there. You will be missed, and we'll think of you, I'm certain, often. And then I'll look to you when I'm dealing with civilians that I have some difficulty dealing with, as a reminder that all civilians are not alike. So, all right. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say quickly, these last few months have felt for me like being a junior in high school as all the seniors are graduating. And as I have come in and as a freshman in Auburn and watched the wisdom from so many people on this board, and none more than you, Dr. Bateman. And I've learned so much about the professional aspect from you. And even when we have been foils on issues, I have so respected you and learned so much through that process. So thank you for your service to the state of Texas. I know this has taken away time from your practice and time from your family, but you have left a great legacy here and have done a great service to our state and to your profession. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
So Chair Merchant, I included in the meeting materials under this agenda item some information about compacts.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just wanted to, the information's out there for the board members. Daryl's here if he had anything he wanted to add regarding the council's take on compacts, and if the board members had any questions.
I will just be frank. I completely forgot about the compacts conversation. So I'm going to let Daryl have this part of the conversation.
The Council of State Governments has received a grant from, I think it's DOD, somebody within DOD, to begin working with interested groups to develop compacts for particular professions. First, their job is to identify those professions that are likely to benefit from a compact, and then to try and help groups within that profession to put together the compact language. Long story short, counseling has been identified as one of those professions, or I know TCA, or the national level association for them, are working on one for like the LPCs. I'm not sure where marriage and family therapy is on it, but one of the things that I would like to know from y'all is that something you would be interested in? Are y'all just vehemently opposed to it? And the reason I say that is if I get asked a question, either on the witness stand or behind the scenes from legislators, individuals involved, I'd kind of like to know what y'all's position on it is, because if y'all are like, no way, no how, then I can just tell them that and I don't waste my time and they don't waste their time. Because candidly, if the board's opposed to it, that's going to make it really hard to get a compact through in the state. I'm a big proponent of compacts, but that doesn't mean y'all are. So I'm just trying to gauge take y'all's temperature on it, see what you think.
I'm going to express my ignorance. I don't know what a compact is. I'm not exactly sure what we're discussing.
If you're a member of a compact state, states they pass legislation that is worded exactly the same in each state. And if you do that, your state is then a member of the licensure compact, and your licensees can then move practice in other member compact states without actually having to go get licensed in that state, because the compact serves as a recognition of uniformed or substantially similar licensing standards. It's a way to promote licensure mobility in the 50 different little laboratories we've got going around the union.
Okay.
So that's what
it's tied to the executive order we have in our packet about trying to make things more mobile. Would that be a?
No, it's actually not tied to that. That's separate and apart. That's the presidential deal. This is something that the states themselves have to pass. Like SciPac for psychology, the Texas legislature passed it, and like 17 other states have passed it. So we're all members of that compact. Patrick is the commissioner for SciPac for the council. And so compacts can do different things. In psychology, for example, they can telecommute into other compact member states, or they can go temporarily and practice in person for up to 30 days. There's different ways to do it. I don't know.
Status on MFTA compacts across the country, or are there?
I don't think there is one. And I'm not sure that AMFTRB, or at least I don't know who y'all's national. I don't know the acronym for your national group.
AAMFT is our professional organization, and then AMFTRB is for the regulatory boards.
Okay.
So Daryl, how is this different than a And forgive me for not knowing the proper term. Ms. Fashold, maybe you can help me here. Reciprocating agreement with another state that we would
Reciprocity.
accept their reciprocity. Thank you. How
Yeah.
many states do we have reciprocity with currently? Do we know that?
0.
We have no reciprocity with any
Nope.
other state.
You don't have statutory authority to enter into reciprocity
Okay.
for marriage and family therapy. Psychology did. Patrick, I can't remember. Did that survive sunset?
I'd have to double
I think
check,
it did,
with
but even psychology doesn't have any reciprocity agreements, even though they have the authority to enter into it, or the council
Yeah.
has the authority. They're very difficult. Reciprocity agreements are very difficult to strike with other jurisdictions, because you get into this argument of, well, my standards are best and yours stink, and therefore I don't want to, give any ground and let your folks in. You get into that kind of an argument and tug of war,
Which
whereas
is,
the compacts kind of override that.
so which is the higher order, a compacts or reciprocity? Which,
A compact is going to be the higher order,
okay.
because the way reciprocity works is the legislature says, okay, executive council, we're giving you the authority to enter into reciprocal licensing agreements with other states with substantially similar licensing. And then
Mhm.
it's up to us to go out and negotiate those with other states. That's where the problem is. But when you have a licensure compact, the legislature has said in each jurisdiction, this is what we're going to do. And it's not really a decision for the individual agency. It's just the ledge makes the call, says we're in it. Now, board or council, you go join that compact and figure out how to make it work. So compacts are a little higher up the food chain than reciprocity agreements.
Okay, and they would go across all states versus individual states.
Not
Correct.
necessarily
Well, I'm sorry,
all
members.
states, but those that agree to be part of it.
Yeah, the member states.
So are there member states that we have a large number of people coming from that state to our state to practice, or people that go from Texas to that state where it'd be advantageous to our customers to do something like that?
I haven't studied the numbers on marriage and family therapy, but I suspect it's going to be very similar to the others. I think you're going to find a large influx from California. And I've also noticed that tends to be a little bit problematic coming in from California on the licensing side. I'm not savvy enough to tell you where the problem lies there, but
We've talked about that some.
yeah, I know there is an issue there, but that's one. I don't know who the other big influxes to Texas would be. I would suspect New York, but I'm not sure on that.
If I could, this is where, and I think, except for the few folks who just joined, they know this is a bone of contention. And we're not psychologists. And I know that there are some LMFTers who are psychologists and LMFT as well. And that's been a problem there. We're not psychologists, and I don't know what that board did, and that's their business. But we've had a lot of problems with that state. And
Yeah.
you open yourself up, and then we're going to have more complaints. You're talking about staff issues. You're going to have a lot of staffing issues and a lot of time that you're going to be burning the candle at both ends, because we've past experiences have stated quite clearly these people are not ready. They double count their courses. We don't know. They've even said in writing, we can't explain how we do it, but if you call us, we can talk to you then. So you're inviting people with problems already. And then you say, well, let's go, not you, but you as a euphemism. Let's go and invite these people who we have no say so. So if Dr. Barty, with all of his experiences in academic education, somebody from that state you just mentioned comes in and says, well, I don't need that. You reciprocitated me, and the heck with your rules, because I'm now part of the club, the group, the organization, and that's going to create problems. And it has. And so we've asked Sarah and staff to look at trends of where we've had that. She's reported out meticulous records and tracked that. This is potentially a problem. And you're inviting, and I'm going to use a Southern acronym, a Southern description. You're inviting the fox into the hen house and say, well, did we do a problem? Did we have a problem? Yeah, you got a big problem. So we really need to review that from this historical perspective because we've had problems. And there are several board members, and Dr. Bateman has heard me say this many, many times in the great state of Texas. And I say that, I just don't say, it's a great state of Texas that people come here because there are advantages, and thank goodness there are. But at the same time, we have people who come who have been undereducated from our perspectives and our standards. And they've even said in board meetings that we should lower our standards for them because they come from that state that you just mentioned. With the audacity to say that and the arrogance to believe that, and have shown that they were very angry and upset that we wouldn't allow them to be licensed because of that. So I'm just saying that has been a real bone of contention, particularly for this board member, for someone to just come in and say, well, I'm from this state and you should just automatically make me a member. And that's not good. I'll yield.
Thank you.
For the board's consideration, Mr. Spear wrote that the compact might be useful for the bordering states and for those licensees who might be in El Paso and have some clients who are in New Mexico and in Texas, same with Oklahoma, Louisiana, et cetera. That's where the compact might be most useful for the licensees and for the clientele.
That was going to be my question. If we decide to pursue looking at compact, do we get to pick which states, or do we, or once we're in it, it's like, whatever.
The legislature picks.
The thing about compacts is the language that's adopted has to be uniform. It has to be the same, exactly the same. So that's why the Council of State Governments is investing right now. They're trying to see, okay, which professions would this benefit, would a compact benefit? And then once they've identified that, they want to have stakeholders in that profession come to them so that they can help them develop the language. In other words, what are the common standards that would have to be in place before a individual could practice under the compact in a state that had adopted it? So it's not like, number one, I mean, we don't even have that. So it's not like I'm not asking y'all for permission to go over the legislature and say, yeah, the board says they like that compact, because there isn't even a compact that exists yet. But sometimes I get asked questions about, hey, is this an issue that's out there? Kind of what's y'all's temperature on it? What do you think about it? Is it something that maybe we need to entertain in the future? And if y'all are like, no, hey, no way, no how, I'd rather just say that and try to kill it right now so that I don't have to deal with it later on. But if y'all are like, well, maybe so, then.
Okay. I would like to look at it only, and I understand the chaplain's concerns and those hesitations, and I don't want to argue against the validity to those at all. But I also would like for us to be open enough to just look at it, only because with the advance of telehealth coming so much, and you have clients that you've seen, and then they move to another state, but they still want to keep, would that help with being able to have a continuation of being able to do that? Would it help, or would it hinder us in attracting more therapists to move to the state of Texas? And I'm in agreement with the chaplain that it is the great state of Texas. I was born and raised here, so I am definitely a proponent. And I love the idea that BHEC is hopefully going to be the standard bearer of how mental health licensing is adopted in states. So I would still like for us to kind of keep the idea of, I'd like to continue to look at the possibility without the promise of doing it, but I'd still like for us to continue to look at this possibility, because I do think that our license is one that could possibly benefit if we could come to an agreement on it. Those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I echo that, Janine, because from a practitioner's perspective, I really like the idea of being able to practice across state lines with some fluidity. I really do like that. However, I don't know if I'm a real fan of other states practicing across state lines into Texas citizenry. I mean, I'm a little, I kind of want my people to be here in this area. So there's that two sides, you know, if we can go outside in states, then other states can come inside us. And I think that needs to be looked at. And the other thing I was thinking, the psychology sci pact is relatively in its infancy. Is that correct, Daryl? I mean,
Correct.
I would really like to see what that looks like, how that really does work. If it is abused in some way, or if there's not like a parity component to it, and I'd really like to keep my eyes on that. And echo Janine's, I'm intrigued by the idea because I really do think moving across state lines is going to be the wave of the future. I think how we do that and to make sure that we're protecting our license and our citizens in a really reasonable way is something that we don't lose sight of.
Yeah,
You know, if I could, I agree with both of you, Board Member Smith and Bartry, that both of you said something very similar. What is that? Coming from Texas to go across state lines to continue to have this continuation of client relationships and client professional relationships, as it were, to provide mental health services to them. Great. But you're saying from the great state of Texas to over there, rather than them coming from there to the great state of Texas. And both of you said very similar remarks. Our concern is that you have a floodgate and then you're going to say what happened. Because people have been allowed, because I think it's a great idea. I agree. I'm not against studying and reviewing, inquiring. Sure, that's part of the hypothesis, to seek the truth. We got it. But on the other hand, if we say, okay, Mr. Spinks, the board has given you full permission to pursue this, then what are the end results? And I agree that you have somebody who's willing to be, psychologist, to be the beta test of this concept, then that's great. You can investigate, inquire, and we have members on the BHEC council who can also ask questions and report back to us as a board what their findings are. But to just openly do it, at this point, I'm hesitant, and I just don't like the idea, particularly with what's going on in the nation at this point. There's a lot of major concerns, and I just think that we need to be very careful, not paranoid, but we need to be very intentional, very careful, and methodical. And that's not to say we're closed-minded. That's to say that we want to take this and protect the citizens of the great state of Texas, because that's what we are supposed to be doing.
I want to hear from Daniel because I think he has something he has been wanting to say, and then we can hear from Ken, and then from Anthony, and then Russ.
Okay. What I was going to say is I definitely kind of agree with all of you all. Kind of looking at it from my profession, if the compact is something more along the lines of reciprocity, that I would probably, even though I know I'm new to this board, I would even recommend to this profession, because then it's, hey, I'm looking at candidate by candidate, making sure you are doing it, following the rules per Texas. So I'm granting each individual, instead of the, clean slate of, hey, everyone agrees to the general rules, we all are the same. Like you said, somebody from California coming to Texas, making sure that they meet the requirements of Texas. So it will be interesting to see how the compact is written. Or I would probably even recommend, if we are looking at it in the ways of other professions, engineering, the state engineering, the state architecture board, in the reciprocity, how you have to travel across state lines. But the thing is, because California seismic loads for us are totally different. Texas, we don't really worry about that. Where in California you do, it's totally different. And you have to retest to go to California. Whereas Louisiana, it's paperwork. Hey, I need to make sure that I'm doing it the Louisiana way. So that's where my fear would be with a compact when, as you all described it, I don't want it to be as cut and dry. If we all agree to these general rules as they're written, and now, like you said, somebody from California, hey, they followed the 10 rules, they're coming on in, there's a concern. Whereas more reciprocity is state by state, So no matter if you came from Minnesota, you came from California, you're doing it the Texas way, and the rules that, because, I have more faith in this board saying that, hey, the rules that we set in place, that we enforce, that we bring up are above board. And not to say any other state is not, but we're more comfortable saying that, hey, our professionals are held to a higher standard, if you will. And, I think that would be a better route to be able to ensure that we can cross over state lines, but then also making sure that we're not getting a bad influx of professionals.
Ken?
Well, what I'm understanding about the compact, I'm in favor of it. One, because of the service to our clients, who, a lot of them go off to school in Oklahoma or New Mexico, somewhere else, and then some of our therapists say, well, I can't see you anymore, even though that connection, that continuity of service is broken. So if I'm understanding right, the compact, our rules would be similar. They would be the same. They would have to have the same training, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it opens great possibility for both the public and those who might be our clients and those of us as therapists. And I think, with all due respect, coming back to what Russ, you were saying about them coming in here, competition is always good, and it's going to go to the one who's doing the best marketing and probably providing the best services. So I'm not afraid of them coming in. I'm just wanting to be able to go out of the state without getting myself or in trouble or getting the client losing that continuity. So thank you.
Anthony?
I was just planning to kind of summarize, and it sounds to me like, even with the concerns we've heard expressed, that I don't think we would be wasting Daryl's time to explore this and to bring us back something to actually take a look at. If his initial concern was, am I wasting my time to even sniff this out? Doesn't sound to me like we're opposed to talking about it. Does that help?
Okay, Russ, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, from the clinical perspective, this is the wave of the future. I mean, we've already found a lot of benefits with many states releasing some of their restrictions on interstate therapy. Colorado allows, if your client goes to Colorado, they say you can still have contact with them. Arizona, Florida, there's some states that have, I'll use the word relaxed, even though that's not the best word. They have accommodated this type of dynamic across state lines because of the pandemic. And so we've already seen a lot of benefits of that. But I really do, I keep going back to, I'd like for many of our decisions to be based on research, based on facts that we can have our hands on. And so I think watching the Psychology SIPAC, California is part of the Psychology SIPAC, I believe. And so, oh, they're not? Okay, I was thinking that they were. But it'll be interesting just to see what that looks like. And I am totally open to exploring that as an option, keeping that as a line item on maybe the front burner, maybe, because it's coming sooner than later, but keeping it something that we do discuss and approach moving through with much wisdom. There's no sense of urgency to do this, but I do think that this is the way that things are going to be going.
So just to summarize again, kind of like Anthony just did, it sounds like as a whole, the board is open to considering a compact. Okay, then that's our answer, Daryl.
Understood.
Okay. The last thing that I have under the board report is since this will be Ken's last meeting and we will be getting a new member, I will probably shuffle around could potentially shuffle around some of the committee assignments simply because I would like to keep the committee assignments so that there's at least somebody with a little bit of institutional knowledge on that. And so again, I might be shuffling a little bit. If there is a particular committee that you are just really fired up and just really want to be on, please let me know and I will try my best to meet your requests. So, okay, that's it. That's all I have for the board report, which means I believe we are on to Daryl's report. Is that correct? Yes, report from the board's delegates to BHEC. So this would be,
George and Janine.
yeah.
Okay, so
George and Janine.
I strive to do better than I did last time, which was no report. And so it's not going to be really hard to raise the bar from the last reporting that I did. So I'm still not quite sure about what this board is looking for. So I've identified some items that I thought were pretty pertinent that came out of it. Janine, I would just ask, please correct anything that I misstate. Please add any commentary that you so feel desired. And please just feel free to tell me to shut up and you take over at any point that you so want to, okay?
I always bow to you, G4. I bow to you and your knowledge. Let that be on the record. Let that be on the record.
Whatever. So I thought we had an amazing meeting. The things that I particularly liked about this meeting, I love the numbers that Mr. Spinks brought to the table. Clearly, there's some formation that is now starting to occur both with the BHEC board and with the administrative organization that sits behind BHEC. I can tell you that it's light years ahead of where we started. I love the responsiveness that has come from it. I love the addressing of the actions that have been put forth. And so let me just start by putting it in that type of framework. When I look at some of the numbers, if we look at the new licenses that were issued, on a target of 600, we've done 1,789, 113 of those year to date are ours. So what I'm going to give you is both what the target is, what we've done year to date, and then what portion we make up of that, so you can start to have an idea of our component of the overall makeup. So licensing renewals, 8,800 is the target, 8,907 were done, 515 were ours. Complaints resolved, 130 is a target, 104 were done, 6 are ours. There were a couple questions around this. We brought on full staff. We did not have full staff for investigators, if I remember correctly. And there was one other issue, we weren't able to hit the numbers of the complaints resolved, but there's no concern that we won't be able to get to those numbers. Average time of complaint resolution, the target's 275. The days is, so that's 275 days for the average time for complaint resolution. Currently, we sit at 1,190 days. So target 270, we sit at 1,190. For processing our MFTAs, we're at 106 days. So we're actually below what the target is. For MFT, our processing is 124.9. I'm sorry, I'm reading the licensing, forgive me, scratch that piece. The complaint resolution, we're looking at, there's a long tail of data for complaint resolution, right? And we're looking into why there's a long tail of why we're stretching out 1,190 days. And Mr. Spinks, am I stating that correctly?
Yes, sir. You
okay,
are.
I just want to make sure. Okay, because I know I got confused for 2 seconds there. So we do recognize that there's a tail. There are things just like you saw in our report earlier. We have things that are several years back that have to be resolved and have to be looked at. And once again, there is an issue with the full staffing that has now been resolved or is being resolved. And so that will pick up. Now in processing of licensing, MFTA 106.55 days, for MFT 124.95 days, and for MFTA upgrades 55 days. And so obviously there's a little bit of work that we can still do there, but it is improvements over what we initially saw, and definitely it's come a long way from what we saw during the, oh Janine, you worked on it so hard, and you and Jennifer were the cornerstone to the sunset, thank you, to the sunset report. Out of the 1,379 complaints through first quarter FY21, 106 of those complaints resided with us. And so a couple other things that really came out, there was an amendment to reduce the monthly amount of licenses that are selected for audit. That was reduced from 10% to 5%. We walked away feeling that there would be no concern about that. It's going to allow for faster processing times, lower administrative work, so that we can refocus not refocus because they're already focused. We can reallocate resources that's on the administrative team onto higher priority tasks than that. The proposed amendment to remove the requirements for mailing renewal permits, that was stricken so that that's no longer required. Obviously, with everything going online and the way that it's being done, it's no longer to have the physical copies of that. Another large area of conversation that happened at the BHEC meeting was the areas of standardization. Currently, we all know that each of the member boards are doing things in different ways. And we can recognize some real efficiencies by doing some things in very similar ways, if not the exact same way. And so we need to explore that a little bit further. I'm trying to look at the highlights of my notes that I would suggest. That is pretty much what I thought was kind of applicable to us and what I thought was important. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm probably a little bit prejudiced because of my public membership. So Janine, anything that you can think of that I did not cover or that we should cover?
No, I don't. I will tell you that in helping to create BHEC, hearing the concerns of most of the professions were, as we do this, are we going to lose the nuances and the specialty of each individual license? And so I am pleased to be able to report that at no time is this being done, that MFTs retain the uniqueness of MFTs, LPCs, psychologists, social workers. I will tell you though, we are most fortunate, and this is my bias on this board, to have Mr. Francis represent us because he is so clear in keeping BHEC accountable. And so I really appreciate the questions that he brought up that helped not only us, but our entire board. And I thought he did some stellar work in asking questions as to why can't it be faster? Why can't these things be done quicker? So I just want you guys to know and understand and appreciate how lucky we are that Mr. Francis is at the helm of this.
Clearly, you take after Jennifer Smotherman and your kindness and generosity. I don't know that that's all true, but thank you for the words. I'll make sure I tell my mommy and daddy that tonight when I speak with them. So, but I do appreciate the board for giving me the opportunity to sit on the BHEC board. I know that it's a great honor to be there, and I just love seeing how the things work. But as I would just echo what Ms. Smith said, which is, I think it's very important that we keep our own identity. I think it's important that we work together as a unit of one, but at the same time, we clearly have a constituency and we have a role in what we do, and we need to make sure that that's clearly identified and called out. So thank you. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Could I just say real quick?
And Madam Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
Having the opportunity to sit in on the BHEC meeting last week, even as a fly on the wall, I just tuned in and had it on kind of the background, was hugely educational in terms of understanding the process and what you guys go through. And number one, I was very proud by both of our representatives on that board and the stature that we hold there. And would recommend, especially to the new folks, not a bad idea to sit in on one of those, and especially right now while it's a little easier to do online. But anyway, thanks for that, Daryl, for the invite. And I learned a lot about the process. So good stuff.
Thank you, George and Janine, for your service on BHEC. I think you both do a tremendous job. And I'm just, anyways, I think y'all are the two best picks for that. So thank y'all for your service there. Okay, now we are on to the report from our board administrator, which would be Sarah.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone about the renewal permits, that those were discontinued. Those are what we used to call renewal cards or wallet cards. So I just wanted to keep that top of mind. And as far as our licensing application or our licensing processes, this is on the council's website, and you can see that marriage and family therapy is a little bit more than 10 working days, but not too far out from what our target is. We have suffered some effects of COVID with now a third employee and some quarantining, but we are, it looks like MFT is keeping fairly up to date. I haven't heard I haven't had to answer too many questions from marriage and family therapy applicants or troubleshoot many of those types of applications. So my sense is that things are going fairly smoothly. Do you have any questions for me? Then that concludes my report.
Okay. So then we have number 13, discussion and possible action regarding future priorities and activities of the board. I do not have anything here. Does anybody have anything they would like to put out there?
Dr. Merchant, I would just, I'm not sure if you're going to be contacting Chaplain Stoggin, but I just wanted to make sure that you did talk with him about our licensing standard because we so need his voice for the military requirements.
Yeah, so Chaplain Stoglin, the Licensing Standards Committee would like to meet on February 12th from 9 a.m. to noon to discuss, well, a number of different things. But one of those things that we would like to discuss is the requirements, like whenever, like creating some sort of matrix so that whenever we have military members who apply for a license, how staff can apply their experience towards our requirements in a way that's standardized so that staff can do it on their own instead of every single one of those having to come before the Licensing Standards Committee. So does that date work for you, February 12th from 9 to noon?
Partially. I have a meeting with the Arlington Historical Cemetery Committee, and this was the only place at the time that allowed colored families to be buried. And we have spent over $500,000 as a committee for this initiative. So I can be there. My meeting is from 10 to 11, so I could go from 9 to 10 and then come back if that will work after that. Okay.
Maybe it'd be better just to pick a different day.
I agree. I would rather have Chaplain Stoglin there for the entire time personally.
Yeah.
How's the day before, the 11th? Is that good for everybody?
February 11th?
Yeah, Thursday. Same time.
Hang on. My calendar is being so weird today. That would work for me. Does it?
That works.
Okay.
For me.
I think, was it Daniel was also on that committee? Does that work for you, Daniel? He may have stepped out for a minute. Daniel, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Little person's having school and their teacher asked me a question.
You're
So
good.
I do apologize, but I am here.
Okay.
It's always the co-worker's fault.
No. So yes, they're demanding right now. So this is my new norm.
So would February 11th from 9 a.m. to noon work for you?
11th?
That's a Thursday.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then we'll, Brian and Sarah, does that work for you?
Yes. There's a psychology board meeting that day, but I don't believe it would interfere technologically wise with our meeting.
Okay. Okay, then we will meet, the Licensing Standards Committee will meet on February 11th from 9 a.m. to noon.
Okay.
Cool beans. Okay. Did somebody say something? Okay. Then next is public comment. So at this point, Sarah will work her magic to enable public comment.
So for those of you who wish to provide public comment, if you've joined by computer, please use the raise your hand feature in the Zoom meeting to indicate that you'd like to provide public comment. And once I go through that queue, then I'll ask you to unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide your public comment. When I get through everyone who's been on the computer, who's logged in by computer, then I'll go through the list of anyone who's logged in by telephone. When you're providing public comment, please identify yourself, whether you are speaking individually or on behalf of an organization. All public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please know that under the Open Meetings Act, the public comment part of an open meeting is to allow the public to address a governmental body. It is not intended for a discussion or a question and answer session with the board. If the commenter brings up an issue that a board member believes should be addressed, the board member may request that issue be added to a future meeting agenda. The board member may make this request during or after the meeting. If after the meeting, they may send an email request to myself, the board administrator. An issue must be scheduled on an agenda item for the government body to take action on it. So that's why I'm asking for it to be put on a future agenda item. If a commenter has a question or a concern regarding a pending application or a complaint, I encourage you to please send an email message to licensing@bhac.texas.gov or enforcement@bhac.texas.gov so that staff can assist you in the usual manner and it can be added to the queue. The board thanks you for your attendance today and your willingness to provide public comment. I see 2 attendees that have their hands raised. Dr. Jason Martin, you have public comment?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you so much for hearing my comment. As always, I appreciate the board's attention and diligence. I want to welcome Mr. Parrish to the board. I'm looking forward to hearing your contributions as well. And I want to thank Dr. Bateman for his service to the board. I've really appreciated getting to know him over the years, and he will be missed from the board. I don't know if his retirement will mean that he no longer attends professional conferences. If not, then I look forward to perhaps encountering him at conferences in the future. I want to first address the question that was brought up about the prohibition of sexual relationships with former clients. I want to echo some of the sentiments that Dr. Merchant expressed during the discussion about that, that there continues to be a power differential between therapist and clients that persists beyond 7 years. I understand that there is some difficulty with knowing exactly how to enforce that prohibition, but I hope the board will continue to look at that and possibly find a resolution to retain that prohibition. I also hope that the board will continue looking at options to assist LMFT associates in counting hours accrued through technology-assisted services, if only for the unprecedented extenuating circumstances of the last year regarding COVID-19. I don't know, in the years that I've been covering the board as TAMFT liaison, I don't know that I've heard an issue get as much attention as this has from stakeholders and from licensees. A lot of counseling centers and agencies and practices that traditionally would have mostly had their hours earned face-to-face had to go online. They didn't have a choice. And so allowing those LMFT associates to count those hours, I think, is very important in allowing them to continue working on their license. I do certainly appreciate and agree with the sentiment that it is not the same as face-to-face. And so for that reason, I don't think that a permanent change would be recommended, But given the extenuating circumstances and the extreme challenges of today, of the last year especially, then that would be called for. Again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. James Harriet, you have public comment?
Yes, good afternoon from Waco. James Harriet, I'm with the Christian Counselors of Texas on the Government Liaison Committee. I always enjoy attending the MFT board meetings and seeing how well you work together. They're always educational. Anyway, we appreciate the work, the good work that you do, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Harriet. I see no other hands raised. So, caller, do you have public comment? Caller, you're muted. If you have public comment, will you unmute?
*6 to unmute if you're having trouble.
I'll move on and come back. Caller, do you have public comment?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Okay, technology, isn't it wonderful? My name is Pamela Berminder. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and approved supervisor for the state of Texas, the great state of Texas. I appreciate the opportunity to provide some public comment on behalf of the CCT Government Liaison CE Committee. And although it was Dr. Barty, you have joined the board since the CCT conference had defined its schedule and agenda. I just wanted to extend an appreciation for Dr. Barty presenting the ethics session at our upcoming CCT conference in February. And still, we do look forward for additional participation in the future from as board members may have an opportunity that sounds like it might be in alignment with Chair Merchant's suggestion about the new stakeholder communication committee, and so we would also be in support of that. With regard to the CEU discussion about the 15-hour limit of non-real-time interaction, I thought that just wanted to share was that possibly the board might consider similar wording as what was suggested today, or for 801.142, that possibly during a time where there is a declared state of emergency and or however that similar wording is, maybe that could also apply with regard to a possible waiver when it would be appropriate when people can't get to the in-face or in-person types of CEU events that would still allow them to obtain the necessary CEUs for their renewals or for their LMFTA work, as well as their associate work that they're working towards licensure. Also, just as a Texas approved supervisor and gatekeeper for the profession, and a native Texan and in this great state of Texas, I want to acknowledge the board's diligence and intentionality of considering what other states are doing, what might be possible for us to incorporate for Texas, but also being a gatekeeper and a watchdog for making sure that we don't dilute or cause our levels of standards to be compromised for what the state of Texas residents are entitled to in terms of the competent and adequate levels of care and support from licensed professionals as ourselves. Again, I thank the board for your diligent effort, for the staff and all of their work in this transition, and I appreciate the opportunity for providing public comment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bermender. I'll go back to the first caller. Caller, do you have public comment? Hearing none, I believe that ends public comment.
Okay, then moving on to item number 15. That is executive session. Do we have any reason to go into executive session?
We do not.
Okay. Then number 16, discussion and possible action regarding pending or completed litigation or settlement offers. Anything? I don't, okay. 17, announcements and comments not requiring board action, such as statements regarding conferences or other upcoming events. It sounds like there's a conference coming up in February that Russ is speaking at. That's exciting. Do you want to say more about that, Russ?
No, there's a conference coming up in February that I'm going to be speaking at. So it's a 3-hour ethics portion for the Christian Counselors of Texas Conference, annual conference. Also going to be presenting at the TAMFT conference and doing 2 presentations there for that. And that's coming up pretty soon also.
Yes, sir. Yes, and the board will be also represented at TAMFT. We're doing, Ken and I are doing a rules update. So exciting stuff. I don't know of any other conferences or any other upcoming events. Anthony?
Quick question for our next meeting. Daryl, if the emergency declaration is ended by May and we're able to meet again, would you anticipate that meeting being in our former location or in a new area?
It would be here.
I'm not asking you to predict the future, but if.
Yeah, it would probably be here in the Hobby Building.
Okay.
Here in downtown. Because we no longer have access to the Exchange Building over there. That's not a state-owned building.
You're on mute, Dr. Merchant.
I don't know why I keep muting myself. Anyways, okay, then I believe that puts us at the last agenda item, which is adjournment.
Dr. Merchant, before we adjourn, can we identify, and I know it's only me, so please forgive me, the next meetings? I'm so bad on getting this in this environment. Normally I would just take a piece of paper and I would hand it to somebody and ask them to put it on my calendar. But in the self-service COVID world that we live on, where the expectations is that I put it on my own calendar, I fell miserably, so please forgive me. What are our next meetings, please?
The next meeting of the Marriage and Family Therapy Board is April 16.
Okay.
The next Behavioral Health Executive Council is May 4th.
Okay.
And that's all the farther I have displayed. The next Marriage and Family Therapy meeting after that is July 23rd.
July 23rd. That is perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'll send out a list, so it'd be a good reminder for everybody.
Thank you. Madam Chair, may I offer a motion to adjourn since I held everybody up?
You may.
Second.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Raise
And you can go ahead and wave it while you have it up there.
Meeting is adjourned at 12:33. Thank you all for your work today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, folks. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. Ken, take care of yourself.
Please be safe.
Ken, thanks for everything, man.
You're
Enjoy
welcome.
your retirement.